If you are hearing these words today, it is not by accident. Out of the millions of videos that exist on this platform, your finger stopped here, on this exact message, at this exact moment of your life, and I want you to understand something before we even begin. What others have seen of you is never the whole story. So before we go any further, take 2 seconds, like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, share it with someone who just came to mind right now without even knowing why, and if while listening to these words you feel something waking up inside you, write "thank God" in the comments. Not for me. For you. To mark today, the exact moment you understood that what you went through was never weakness, but a strategy heaven itself orchestrated. Because what I am about to tell you now, most people will never understand, but you, if you are still here, if something kept you from scrolling to the next video, it is because your soul already recognizes this truth, even if your mind hasn't put words to it yet. Listen closely. There is a season in the lives of certain people where they must accept being underestimated, misunderstood, sometimes even looked down on, precisely because the time has not yet come for their true identity to be revealed. This is not a curse. It is not an accident. It is divine protection, a temporary garment God Himself places on you, exactly at the moment you are most vulnerable, to keep you safe until the day you are ready to stand in your full identity. Understand this deeply. What others interpreted as weakness, naivety, simplicity, insignificance in you, may have actually been the most brilliant covering heaven ever wove around your destiny. It is not a coincidence that you have often been underestimated. It is not by chance that some people have looked down on you, doubted your abilities, laughed at your ambitions, filed you away as unimportant, too simple, too quiet to ever accomplish anything great. Understand this. Most people never grasp this fundamental truth, the one I want to engrave in you today. God often hides His greatest treasures inside the most ordinary packaging, precisely so they are never stolen before their appointed time. A rough diamond looks like a plain gray stone until it has been cut. No one fights to steal a gray stone. But everyone covets a cut, polished diamond. That is why heaven sometimes lets you look for a season, like nothing more than a plain stone. Look at the story of David, at a specific moment in his life that most sermons forget to mention. Relentlessly pursued by King Saul, exhausted with nowhere safe left to go, David flees into enemy territory, to King Achish of Gath, one of the Philistine territories most hostile to him personally. But once he arrives there, the king's servants recognize him immediately. Isn't this David, the one they sang about, who had killed his tens of thousands? David realizes in an instant that he is in immediate mortal danger, surrounded by enemies just waiting for a reason to take revenge on him. So what does he do? He completely changes his behavior in front of them. He starts scratching marks on the doors of the city, letting saliva run down into his beard, acting like a completely deranged man, like a harmless simpleton. Understand this deeply. This man, the anointed of God, the future king of Israel, the one who had defeated Goliath, deliberately played the role of a simpleton, contemptible, insignificant, in order to escape certain death. And that strategy worked perfectly. King Achish, irritated, even said to his own servants, "Look, the man is insane. Why did you bring him to me? Do we lack madmen that you had to bring this one to me?" David was sent away, dismissed, considered worthless, and it was precisely that contempt that saved his life. If this resonates with you, listen closely to what comes next. Sometimes, what others see as your weakness, your simplicity, your insignificance, is not an accident of your character. It might be exactly the covering heaven used to protect you from enemies who, had they perceived your true worth, would never have stopped pursuing you. Most people also never understand this truth. Sometimes it isn't you who deliberately chooses to appear insignificant, like David in front of Achish. Sometimes it's simply the way circumstances shaped you, the way trials made you quiet, the way life taught you to make yourself small in order to survive. Look at the story of Joseph facing his own brothers, years after being sold as a slave. Now governor over all of Egypt, the second most powerful man in the entire empire, he sees his brothers come before him to buy grain, without them recognizing him for even a second. Understand this. Joseph could have revealed himself immediately, exposed his identity, crushed his brothers under the weight of his newfound power. But he chose a far wiser strategy. He kept playing a role, speaking to them through an interpreter, testing their hearts, watching for their transformation, before revealing who he truly was. And look at the exact moment he finally chooses to reveal himself. He sends every Egyptian servant out of the room, stays alone with his brothers, and speaks these words that have echoed through the centuries. "I am Joseph your brother, whom you sold into Egypt." Understand this deeply. There is a specific moment, chosen by God Himself, when your true identity must be revealed, neither too soon nor too late, but exactly when it will produce the greatest impact, healing and restoration. Joseph did not reveal his identity out of revenge or pride. He revealed it to restore a relationship broken for years, to turn betrayal into reconciliation, to show that even in the evil done to him, God had woven a plan of deliverance for an entire nation. If this resonates with you, understand this now, because here is a truth that may touch exactly what you are living today. There are seasons where you must accept staying silent about who you really are, not out of shame, but out of strategic wisdom, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal your hand. Look at the story of Esther once more, but focus this time on a detail many people overlook. When she becomes queen, Scripture clearly states that Esther had not revealed her people or her family background, because Mordecai had instructed her not to. Understand this deeply. This woman, chosen to become queen, had to hide her true identity, her belonging to the Jewish people, for years, precisely because that secret would, at the decisive moment, become the most powerful weapon to save her entire people. Imagine how long Esther had to play a role, presenting herself simply as a beautiful young woman of the palace, never revealing where she truly came from, never uncovering what lived deep within her heart. And it was precisely because no one knew her true identity that Haman's plot against the Jews never suspected it was, without knowing it, also targeting the queen herself. When the day finally came before the king, Esther finally revealed her hand. "If I have found favor in your sight, O king, let my life be given me, this is my petition, and my people, this is my request, for we have been sold, my people and I, to be destroyed." Understand this. The secret she had kept for years was not a betrayal of her faith. It was the silent preparation for the moment her revelation would save thousands of lives. Listen closely now, because here is a truth that touches something very deep in the human heart. There are people God deliberately chooses from among those who seem weakest, precisely so that no one can claim credit for what they will accomplish. Look at the story of Gideon one more time, but with fresh eyes. When the angel of the Lord calls him a mighty warrior, Gideon himself is stunned, almost shocked by that title. He answers immediately, as if defending himself, "Please, my Lord, how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house." Understand this deeply. Gideon's own image of himself was in total contradiction with what God actually saw in him. And it was precisely that appearance of weakness, that almost painful humility, that made his final victory all the more spectacular in everyone's eyes. Understand this. It is never by chance that God repeatedly chooses, throughout all of Scripture, those the world considers the most insignificant, to accomplish his most powerful works. It is not a coincidence that you too have often been seen as someone quiet, simple, too ordinary to draw attention. That appearance is not a curse on your life. It might be exactly the strategy heaven is using to prepare you, away from watching eyes, away from jealousy, away from attempts at sabotage, until the day your true strength is revealed in a way so striking that no one will be able to doubt its divine origin. Now look at the story of Ruth, that Moabite woman, a foreigner, a widow, with no resources, no social standing, simply gleaning the leftover grain behind the harvesters just to survive with her mother-in-law. In everyone's eyes, Ruth was nothing more than a poor foreigner among many others, looked down on by the culture of her time, with no visible promise of a glorious future. And yet this woman, in her simplicity and quiet faithfulness, would become the great-grandmother of King David himself, and appear directly in the lineage that would lead all the way to Jesus Christ. Understand this deeply. Nothing about Ruth's outward appearance, at the moment she humbly gleaned in the fields, hinted at the place she would come to occupy in the entire history of salvation. If this resonates with you, understand this. Your current position, however humble, however quiet, however insignificant it may feel to you today, does not in any way determine the greatness of what God is preparing through you. Ruth never sought to be noticed, to put herself forward, to prove her worth to others. She simply remained faithful day after day, in the most modest tasks, and it was that quiet faithfulness that eventually caught Boaz's attention, and placed her directly within God's redemptive plan for all of humanity. Listen closely now, because here is the most overwhelming truth in this entire message. Look at how Jesus himself lived out this same principle, on an even greater scale. For nearly 30 years of his earthly life, the Son of God, the one through whom all things were created, lived in complete anonymity, known simply as the carpenter's son, in a village as insignificant as Nazareth, to the point that one of his own future disciples would exclaim with contempt, "Can anything good come from Nazareth?" Understand this deeply. The one who carried within him the full fullness of divinity agreed to remain hidden, unknown, ordinary, for most of his life on this earth, before the moment chosen by the Father finally came to reveal who he truly was. And even during his public ministry, Jesus often asked those he healed not to reveal who he was. Not yet, not at that exact moment. He controlled with perfect wisdom the timing of every revelation, knowing exactly when to speak openly and when to remain silent. Understand this. If even the Son of God agreed to be underestimated, unrecognized, reduced to his most ordinary appearance for so many years, then don't be surprised that you too must go through a similar season, where your true identity stays hidden from others, while you wait for the perfect moment chosen by the Father for it to be fully revealed. Understand this now, because we are reaching the peak of this message. Look at what happened on the day of the resurrection, on the road to Emmaus, when the risen Jesus walks alongside two disciples without them recognizing him, until the exact moment he chooses to reveal himself to them, by breaking the bread. This scene sums up this entire message. Jesus was there, fully present, fully alive, fully victorious, and yet he chose the exact moment of his revelation, neither before nor after, but precisely when it would have the greatest impact on the hearts of those two hopeless men. Understand this deeply. Your revelation, too, will come at the exact moment God has already set, and that moment will produce an impact you cannot even imagine today. Now that we have walked together through these stories, David before Achish, Joseph facing his brothers, Esther hiding her identity, Gideon underestimating himself, Ruth gleaning in the fields, and Jesus hidden in Nazareth before his final revelation, I want to speak to you concretely, because a revelation that doesn't turn into action stays sterile. The first thing I ask of you is to stop believing that other people's contempt defines your true worth. Like David before Achish, what others perceive in you is not necessarily what God truly sees in you. Some may have labeled you, filed you away, minimized you. That changes absolutely nothing about what heaven has already decided for your life. The second thing I ask of you is to accept that certain seasons of strategic silence are not punishments, but preparations. Like Joseph facing his brothers, you may not yet have the green light to fully reveal who you are, what you carry, where you're headed. That is not weakness. That is divine wisdom working through you. The third thing I ask of you is to patiently keep certain secrets until the decisive moment. Like Esther, there may be a truth, an identity, a mission within you that you must still protect for a time, not out of fear, but because its revelation in its own time will produce an impact you cannot yet measure today. The fourth thing I ask of you is to stop underestimating yourself, exactly as Gideon long underestimated himself. The way you see yourself is not always an accurate reflection of what God sees. He may be calling you a mighty warrior at the exact moment you feel most insignificant. The fifth thing I ask of you is to stay faithful in the humblest tasks, like Ruth gleaning in the fields. Never despise the modest position you hold today. That may be exactly where God is preparing the encounter, the opportunity, or the transformation that will change the entire course of your story. The sixth thing I ask of you is to accept, like Jesus in Nazareth, that your greatness never depends on immediate recognition from others. You can be extraordinary in God's eyes while remaining completely anonymous in the world's eyes, for an entire season, sometimes even for years. The seventh thing I ask of you is to trust God's perfect timing for your own revelation, exactly as on the road to Emmaus. Never force the moment of revealing yourself. Let God choose the exact instant your truth will have the greatest possible impact on those around you. Understand this now, because we are approaching the conclusion of this message, and I want every word to sink deep into you. What you have been through, those years you were underestimated, those moments people doubted you, those silences you had to keep even as your heart burned to reveal everything, none of that was ever wasted time. It was the silent preparation for a revelation God Himself had been orchestrating from the very beginning. It is not a coincidence that this message is finding you exactly today, at the exact moment you may have started believing you would stay invisible forever. You did not arrive here by accident. This word did not come into your life by chance. If you have made it this far in this message, it is because something inside you already knows the moment of your revelation is approaching. He has not forgotten the simplicity you had to put on before your enemies, just as He did not forget David before Achish. He has not forgotten the strategic silence you kept, just as He did not forget Joseph before his brothers. He has not forgotten the secret you still carry, just as He did not forget Esther in the palace. He has not forgotten your doubts about your own worth, just as He did not forget Gideon in his winepress. He has not forgotten your faithfulness in the humblest tasks, just as He did not forget Ruth in the fields. And He has certainly not forgotten the years you remained anonymous in the eyes of the world, just as He did not forget Jesus in Nazareth, before the Father chose the perfect moment to reveal Him to the entire world. The day is coming when what you had to hide, downplay, minimize in front of others, will finally be revealed with a clarity that will leave several people around you stunned. Those who underestimated you will remember every moment they doubted you. Those who looked down on you will finally understand they had, standing in front of them all along, someone God had been preparing in the shadows from the very beginning. And you will finally stand tall, not to take revenge, not to crush anyone, but simply to reveal what heaven has patiently built within you, exactly as Joseph did before his brothers, with tears, with forgiveness, with a greatness that owed nothing to pride. If this message has resonated with you, if you feel these words were truly meant for you, then before you close this video, take a moment. Like it, so that other people, exactly like you today, might come across this message at the exact moment they need to hear that their silent season is coming to an end. Subscribe if you haven't already, to keep receiving words that strengthen your faith in the most decisive moments of your life. Share this video with someone who just came to mind right now, without even knowing why that name popped into your head, because maybe that person too is quietly carrying an identity the world has not yet discovered. And above all, if you are receiving this message with faith, if something inside you just woke up, write "Thank God" in the comments. Not to prove anything to anyone, but to mark before yourself and before heaven, the exact moment you understood that your hour of revelation is approaching. What others mistook for weakness was actually a divine strategy. And soon, you will finally reveal your hand.